My name is Victoria Garcia. I'm currently Project Director of International Cooperation in AETHNIC. And AETHNIC is an association working in sustainable and responsible tourism. First of all, I would like to introduce myself because I don't come from a tourist perspective. So then you will be thinking, oh my God, what she's going to tell us, no? So I come from agriculture background and I've been working in development since long ago. I've been working in Nicaragua, Guatemala, Salvador, Angola, Myanmar since 2012 and until now, Nepal. And then at the distance, I've been working also in Morocco and what else? Colombia. Obviously in Gambia, where is the example I will be introducing. And which is the other one? Morocco, Gambia. Yeah, I think at the distance like that. The first countries I've been living there. So I would like to just put it in place that my background is working always in development countries. Okay, and maybe you think that this is a kind of sector that does not have anything to do with you, but it's not real. There is a lot of affects to the environment, to the social, and also to the economic, of who, which actors, but we will see later. So this is AETHNIC, Association of Sustainable and Responsible Tourism. We can look at the next one. Also, yeah. So as I was saying, this is an association we are working in a more global aspects. Intersectorial, because we are touching different aspects, as tourism is very transversal, and also in different locations. We have on one side a travel agency, which is nothing to do with me. I don't know much about that. We have the international cooperation, where we are working with communities, mainly in women economic empowerment. It's mainly about economical possibilities for women, linked to tourism. And then we have also the project here in Catalonia, which is the network of sustainable and responsible tourism, right? So that means that we are working on the same principles, all in different places, and then we adapt in each location what we are doing. So as I was saying, Morocco and the Gambia, we have projects in international cooperation, which is pure development, and we have also the travel agency. We have trips to there. We have families in Morocco and also in the Gambia, different trips organized by the agency. And in Senegal and Guinea-Bissau, we have only travels. Okay? We can, so I should have this here, maybe I take it. Yeah. So this is a working also with the tourist sector in Catalonia. So we set up around 3 to 4 activities that they are related more here, because we want to make an impact on the way how the tourist travels, the trips to the south, they are developed, they are designed. Okay? So the project we are working in Gambia is design social and entrepreneurial projects within the tourist sector by women with vulnerable situations. So that means we are talking about women that they were escaping from the country and they were trapped in human trafficking. Women vulnerable because they are at risk of sexual exploitation, with a lot of dependence and different kind of difficulties. No? So that means this is the target group we have been working with. Yeah. So this is the project, the current project. The current project is funded by the Catalan government, the Cooperation Agency of Development of de la Generalitat. And this is our partner, we will see later. It's mainly on economic development with these vulnerable women in vulnerable situations. This project is in Gambia and Catalonia, is for 1 year only, and the big idea is to influence, to change how the trips are designed when we travel to the south. Okay. So this, as I mentioned, this is our partner. It's an Institute of Travel and Tourism Education. It's an academy organization, but also is they are working as advisors to the Tourist Board of Gambia and the Tourist Ministry of Gambia, right? We have also this Chamber of Commerce, the Women Chamber of Commerce of Gambia, that they are supporting certain aspects, and then we have a feminist group, Gender Platform, to introduce the gender aspect. So this is the first project in we go back to 2021. So it's a project with this group of women, as I mentioned, 1 year as well, and they self-call No Women Left Behind, which was a name, it was a kind of, I would say, a movement around the world about not having any women behind, no, of all the development and the advantages, the rights. So the objective of this project, which is based in Gambia, mainly in the capital, with this group of women, is to contribute to transform the sector through women leading this small business in the tourist sector, right? What we are going to do, what is more specific, we are going to provide training and we are going to mentor them in this path, in this process to establish this small business related to tourism. We need to consider that in developing countries, we do things that it seems very simple, that they are not so simple to be able to do there. So that sometimes is quite complicated. What we expected from this project, we expect to consolidate a training offer from ITOC, which is our partner, the Institute of Travel and Tourism of the Gambia. So to have a more gender approach in their training courses. We plan to train these 30 women in entrepreneurship and leadership, linked to social and solidarity economy, and also that support them to design these 30 small business, right? Related to tourism, but not always has been like that. So we deliver what we have been doing. We deliver this training for 4 months on basic skills, business skills, customer services, all this related to microfinance, so responsible and sustainable tourism. Later there were practice, which is just to present their business to a panel of experts. So to see if they were able to sell their business, to have like funding perspectives. And this was the exercise that they were presenting their own business. It was an exercise to also to clarify what they wanted to do. We did entrepreneurship, gender and gender perspective trainings, human rights with the Commission, because there is a big UN organization for human trafficking. And then the mentoring program, which is now working on until end of the year, is done by 2 expertise women, 2 business women, one in catering and the other one in design and art, mainly about clothing, fashion, all that. So we are doing the mentoring, which is classes, sessions, visits to different women that they are managing their own business, internship. So they found a small business where they can do practice. And then also they will participate in a green fair organized by the Gambia Women Chamber of Commerce. So what are we doing here? So we were doing last week, as Nurias mentioned, we were doing in the Association of Travel Agencies a training on sustainable development goals and gender for tourism professionals. Today we are here doing this seminar, speaking about the responsible tourism and human rights. And we are having next week on 16 an online workshop about tourism and gender approach in sub-Saharan Africa, which is going to be led by the Dr. Daniela Alarcon and Barbara Schutt from Kenya, that all of you are very welcome to join, please. And we will be doing some digital tools, so all the sector can check about information and different things on our website. So this is the list of activities that we are doing, and I don't know if there is any question about that, about the project, or about anything related more to development.
The gender group? The gender group. Do you have any questions, gender group?
Not too much gender, no? What do you think? Any question or anything?
To be fair, you haven't done your expo yet, so cool, because I'm just reading on this part right there. It's the whole group though, it's not you.
Well, it's a very simple project. It means like it's training, it's mentoring women with a very vulnerable situations. So what it happens in development that you don't do things much more different to here, but in the way that you are doing at the level that what you're doing is obviously is very different, because we are talking with women maybe with no education. Maybe they attend to school only a few years, so with a lot of challenges and different things. So yeah, so I don't know if there is any question or anything that you wanted to. Yeah, please.
What do you mean by showing, like teaching them gender? What are exactly I'm teaching about gender?
Well, this is something that you need to do with the groups in each country. You cannot do it from here normally. You could have an expertise maybe managing that, but it's the groups there that they know how to do it. So normally it's going to be.
I mean, like, what exactly are you teaching these women about gender?
I cannot tell you exactly what they are. Probably it's gonna be about all the rights, about women's rights, about economic rights, about obviously all about the human trafficking and all that. So all about the rights that they have, and also how they can be also leading their own business, showing women that they are doing it. It's very, very basic normally.
Yeah. I think you take gender then as a very broad term, right? And connect them.
Yes. I don't have the detail of what they were doing, because it's something that in each country that we are working is managed in different way. But for example, in Morocco, I can tell you a bit more what we're doing. But because this is externalized with the professionals of gender. So it's very much about showing what are their rights, and just let them know all that, and try to understand that they have the right to have their economic income, and all the abuses that they were having before, that to know how is now the rights that they have. But this is something I don't know the detail, the curriculum. I can share you with you later when the project is finished. But, yes. You were first. So, yeah.
I'm just curious. Are you guys the one that contacts them, or
Sorry?
or the women you contact? Like, you guys are the one that contact them, or they're the one that?
Okay, so wow, you go very detailed. Yes, it's important. Yeah, normally we have these partners, the Women Chamber of Commerce, Gender Platform, and also we've been working with another organization called Women Initiative of Gambia. So what it means, they are doing different activities. They are social local NGOs. So they have already women, they know women. So they are the one referring, and then we have a list of criteria so that the women they can join the project, right? But this one, as I was mentioning, this one is coming from this project that in 2021 they already were training. So we are working with the 20 women that were trained here, around 18, because 2 or 3 they didn't continue, plus another ones that they come from the Women Chamber of Commerce, from the another organization, WIC, and Gender Platform. Okay. But normally is the local NGOs that they know, because they already know people, and then they refer, and then we have the criteria. They do an interview with them to see if it matches the criteria. That is general in all projects, in all development. It's not only in this one. This is a practice that we do in all projects working in development.
So who's funding all of this?
Yeah, this is funded by, as I mentioned here, yes, the Catalan agency. Exactly. Yes.
So,
Yes, please.
so taxpayers pay for this?
Yeah. Yes, because we believe that if we have a society more equal and more balanced, it's benefit for everyone.
This is like just a controversial question. Why would you fund other societies to develop when we should be developing our own problems, if that makes sense? And like in Spain, Catalonia in general, there are issues here. Why would we be focusing on other communities? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just like,
Yeah. Okay. Well, it depends where you put the barrier, I guess, where you put the border in certain aspects. If we believe a more balanced and equal world benefits to all of us, then is a principle to support these communities. Also, why the European community, Spain, Catalonia, where we are focusing, a priority area is the West Africa, because there are more than 20,000 people disappear in the trip, what is called the back way, since 2008, more than 20,000 disappear in this back way towards Europe. So the drama is terrible about the amount of people that disappear and all the problems, all what they suffer.
Who disappears?
To come to Europe. I don't have here the slides of PowerPoint and another. So we have, there is thousands of people trying to reach Europe for different reasons. Poverty, also persecution, because for where obviously they orient sexual orientation, or they are widows, or single mothers, or there are many things, economic, and also people because the families, they need money. Maybe your mother has got cancer. What do you do if you are in Gambia? You just go to Europe. What can you do? So there is many reasons why people take this way. This is called the back way. Normally it takes around 1 year and a half. When you can imagine all the most horrible things that you can imagine. Because, for example, in India, which is a part of this route normally, there is human trafficking in a high levels. So the slavery market there is something that we are making up. It's a real thing. So this back way is really terrible. So there is around 20,000 people, since they start measuring, that disappear in the sea, trying to come to Europe. So that's the reason this area is prioritized for all the agencies for development. Yeah. And this one is very related, obviously, with tourism because it's what we are working as AED. But there are other NGOs, other agencies that are working other topics, agriculture, other things. If you are interested, I think we partner with one foundation called Kalilu, K-A-L-I-L-U. And he wrote a book. He lives here in San Pere de Ribes, explaining his trip to Europe. And it's around 1 year and a half of all these things. And if you are women, you can imagine much worse things. Please.
How do you join something like this? How can you, is this a project you can be paid for? Is it by the government? Is it voluntary work? How do you?
No, volunteer. We don't have volunteers. I'm being honest. I'm working in development. If someone asks me when they ask you, we have volunteers, nobody wants. And don't be, but imagine that you arrive to a chemistry industry, and I say, oh, okay, I want to volunteer, I can do it, what you are doing. The engineer will say, come on, you cannot do it, no? So there is some NGOs or some experiences, obviously, in the internet you can find that they are doing this kind of social trips, or if you want to try, or you feel interested about this field. But you can work in development, because I have many colleagues working in development and they come from tourism. So, or you can start traveling. For example, the trips that we do is more interacting with the communities, and then you start seeing how it works. So if you have interest in working in development, you can do a master, for example. Here the oldest one is the UV, the Globalization Master done by Mondres, the NGO Mondres, which is in the economic faculty. So I would say if you are interested in this field, working more with the communities, more like this, you can starting traveling, I would say. Getting interactions if you like that, and then you will start knowing other projects, other things going on there. There are many about this, is what we try to do. I didn't explain, but ITOC is developed the Ninkinanka Trail in Gambia, which is a route of different villages where you can have experience tourism, no? Doing activities with the community, having more share with the community.
How do you make sure that that doesn't become massive?
Sorry?
How do you make sure that that doesn't get too big? And that
well, this is what we do with the partners. Exactly, we don't take big groups.
gonna happen, but okay. Normally we don't take big groups, we make sure that is activities with women, that the money goes to them. So when you have a partner, you have someone organizing. Always there is a risk in the long term, maybe. Yeah, it depends how it's managed. But then you set up the principles and then you're working with partners like other organizations that have the same principles.
When these women are trained in the kitchen or whatever aspect, are they then offered jobs here, or is that just like they stay there?
No, jobs here. No.
So that it's mainly
Yes, that it will be like a organized migration, and this at the moment is not with Gambia or other countries. It will be too many people who need it to have. No, they are trained there, and then there is we support them. We support them on how to search for funding to be able to do their own business. They are doing small things, but then it's not all related
So
to
we
this
invest with no economic benefit.
Sorry?
We invest in them,
Yes.
and we don't get anything back.
Well, we get back more the feeling that we are supporting the society in general, the world, no? Yeah. But not directly, exactly. This is cooperation. Then you have other type of funding, that for example we have a meeting recently, that is more, that the benefit is in Europe. That the European Union also have these programs where they do actions in developing countries, but the benefit is for companies here. This is cooperation. Directly is to support communities and people in the south. Yeah. But also the Catalan agency and the Barcelona Council, we talk about global justice. It's about global justice because obviously it's not, yes, Gambia is a small country, it's agriculture, it's nature, very nice nature, but there is no petrol, there is no gas, there is no minerals like other countries. So yeah, it's they were spoiled before because there is the colonial business part of the that we have was there.
So you educate the women on, for example, baking bread, and that way they can open their own businesses or work in the tourism sector in Gambia?
Yeah. This is the idea. Yeah, exactly. Okay. And also, I'm very critical on that because we put a lot of effort sometimes and agencies about entrepreneurship. And gender and entrepreneurship, we need to be careful because it's not that women are not entrepreneurs. No. It's because we don't have the same opportunities and we don't have as easy as men, that then women choose the only way and is doing entrepreneurship. It does not mean that women are more entrepreneurs. No. It's because we have more difficulties. Yeah. So I'm critical on that because then you find these big organizations, namely these philanthropists from the US sometimes, and they say, oh, entrepreneurship is the solution. No, it's not the solution. It's the way to, you don't want to be responsible to say, you serve for yourself.
So I find it very interesting because my dad used to do agricultural things in Zambia, and I just wonder, like, how effective is it? Because at the end of the day, these countries have worse logistics. They don't have the right roads. They don't have the right equipment. They don't have the right even training to do this. Sometimes they don't even have the same natural sources, such as enough water to, be able to maintain all these cultivations. So, to what extent is the effect that this can make? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that are mainly based on the lack of the country, in a sense.
You mean how do you make it to be effective? That
exactly.
It has got
there's many factors that, as much as you can try to help, there's no factors that they're just there.
Well, obviously, in terms of agriculture, this is the difference. Yes, you have the big difficulty that is that you depend on rain-fed agriculture. So if there's no rain, you don't have anything. Is what is happening in the Central America. So we speak about the dry corridor because it's a massive migrations because there have been like 2-3 years with drought. If you don't have a good harvest this year, it's not 1 year problem, it's 2 years problem because then you don't have seeds for the next one. So yes, you have more challenges. So for that reason, I'm critical with this type of projects, even this one, which is with very little budget, 1-year project because you don't make a lot of impact. Working in development, we need to think about 3 to 5 years, less.
Exactly. So the purpose then is not that much to then export or make a profit out of this project, but more to feed the local communities, the agricultural ones.
Well, the agriculture, it depends how you set up. This is what is the same with the tourism. It depends how do you do the project, what is the activities, what is your approach. You can have some impact to a different one. Okay, if you have very adapted to here, very adapted to the location, what are the tools, what are the mechanisms that you are using, you can make profit. Obviously, you can, now we are working a lot on agroecology, that you don't need so much resources. The resources you have, whatever you have in the farm nearby. But it takes more time to adapt if you are using a lot of chemicals in the case of agriculture. And then you are using other things. So it's more in the sustainability that Elvira will be talking, more in tourism, but it's reusing, using the things that you have closer. But yes, if we want to make big impact, then we need to make a big investment. Not always a lot of money implies a lot of impact, because sometimes the money goes in stupid things, being honest. But yeah, in one study I did in Myanmar, where I used to work since 2012, I established that more or less $400 is the minimum to set up a decent something, a business. And there are many NGOs that are putting $50 per business. So what do you want $50? You buy a comb, a mirror, and you are a hairdresser, and you expect it to get us full salary every month? No, does not work like this. So a minimum of $400, and some people speak about 2,000, 3,000, obviously. Yeah, it's difficult. It's not easy, but at least we put something. And when the programs or the projects are longer, much better, because then you have the time to be building up on top of that. Mm-hmm. Yes. No, you're welcome.
The workshops, or when you teach the women how to bake bread, for example, is this a traditional practice, or is it the way of baking bread that comes from Europe? Because I'm sure that they have their own practices.
Well, I had my discussions with the director of my talk. He was saying, no, it's traditional from there. I still believe that it's from here, but he insisted that no. This is very traditional, the bread, having bread in the afternoon, evening from there. I'm sure that maybe it's traditional for the last 200 years, maybe, since the colonialism. Yeah. Now it is, but yeah, people.
Yeah, because I think it's always important to maybe keep the people in touch with their own culture and not trying to change it even more, or with the mindset of we as people from Europe have to save them by implementing.
Yeah, I'm concerned I haven't chosen the most beautiful presentation and the photographs, because they were not related to this project, but I could show in this Ninkinanka trail that we support and ITOX and developed together with the tourist board, Gambia tourist board, all that. And the activities that you do there is with the local. You do tie and dye, so you do you tie and dye the clothing. You go with the canoeing through the oyster production in the manglars. So yeah, it's a bit that you do the traditional things. This bread thing is something I think is traditional for the last 2 or 3 since the colonialism. Yeah, but the people eat it. It's not something that we are imposing. And I understand what you said. For me, this type of training, personally, is a bit like, okay, what the women have to do in order to life, cooking, cleaning, all that. But on the other aspect, when the women don't have access to education or other options, so probably is a first, a medium step where they can still have something where to earn an income. So it depends which background you have. It's okay, it's acceptable, I think, at least to give a solution, to give yes, again.
Also, to educate those women to then be teachers themselves?
No, they are not at that level.
Okay.
The women that we are talking, they were human trafficked.
Yeah.
So that means they were in a very, very. If you put yourself to this bad way as a woman, knowing that you are going to be violated, you know in 1 year you are going to have the worst things in the world, probably.
Yes.
You are in a very bad situation if you put yourself there towards Europe. Okay. Yes, time, yes. Yes.
Evita, how much time do you need
Yes.
for your presentation?
Go No, sorry.
You can just stop it and then
Yes,
maybe
yeah,
all
yeah.
of the questions that we have, we can just join
Maybe
them
later.
again or throughout the presentation. So maybe let's just do the ones that we had now. I think
Two.
that you had your hand up, being you too.
This organization is obviously preparing women to have financial independence and have entrepreneurial spirit, and that entrepreneurial spirit could have a positive impact on tourism because it presents, touristic activity and so on. I was wondering what other impacts may it have on tourism, if you have any.
This one.
Yeah.
Well, we hope here because with this type of training that we are doing here today, and we had last week in Acabe, we will have the workshop online. What we want to do is to show different type of trips to developing countries. So it's something that with the sustainability we will talk in Elvira. Okay, which actors are you choosing? Which is going to be your providers? What you are going to do with your? Are you going to the big hotels? Or are you going to who is going this money later? Who is benefiting? Who is hiring this company? So it's more about that. Last one.
Really quick. I think it's really good that you're educating women about their rights and all of that they maybe wouldn't have known before, but are you actually educating the men to...
It's a good point, yes. It's
the
missing in this project because, yeah.
It's not just women that are like, yay, women power, but it's like men will still have that mentality.
Yeah.
In that area, I'm not saying
Yeah.
men cannot.
Yes, well, as I was saying, in this project is mainly to have this activity. It's about the changing the training offer of ITO, because ITO is a training school of tourism and travel and tourism, and then is to have this course of them with this gender approach. But yes, if we want to change the society, of course we need to work with them.
Because you said when Anna asked the question about like the gender, because you were talking about training, explaining the rights and.
Yeah. In this case, yes. In Morocco, we are going to start working with men, which is completely different environment, different society, different culture, completely. You need to do it. That's the reason I was saying that we need to do it with the experts in each country. Because it's different, the culture is different approach, and you cannot put the same thing in different places. But yes, we need to work on with the men. Good. Now, Elvira.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for the introduction to the topic and for sharing your experience. I'm going to be talking about, just let me find, yes, it does tremble. It's shaky. Let's see if I can find, wow. Okay, so I'll start the presentation now. I just want, because if I had shared with my computer, this would have been working differently. So I wanted to do something that a little bit also interactive with you. I don't know if you've tried this tool anytime. Have you tried this, Slido? So you scan the QR. This is just to check that it's working, or else I will just ignore it, because if I used my computer, I could be sharing everything. So,
you might want to stop the AC for this.
I see. Or you can go to the website and then you put that code. A ver. Slido.com.
Is the QR working? Can you scan it?
Well, then just enter the website, and you put that code, which is CTT, and then the date, 11/7, November 7. A ver. A ver si chuta. Check. Oh. A ver. But did you go to the one before? Like, did you enter the website and then did you put the code? And then if you do it with your phone, you have like Q&A and polls. If you go to polls, then you should be seeing this. Do you see this? Yes? Okay, but so then I will, just so I don't have to go back and forth opening the presentation, because otherwise I could have done it all together, but it's not working. Okay, so hopefully that will work, or else we'll just ignore technology for once. So, well, thank you, Nuria, for inviting me, and well, Victoria, she was really like the one who invited me to this whole presentations. So my name is Elvira, and as Victoria, I'm also in the same situation as Victoria. I'm not from a tourism background. I'm a biologist by training. So my background is more like the environmental background. I've been working for many years in environmental conservation projects, initially more on coastal marine conservation, plastic pollution, sustainable fisheries, sustainable consumption, and all those things that I started doing led me, initially, obviously, my focus was more on purely conservation. As a biologist is what I wanted to do. But then when you start seeing like what are the issues behind, what are the things that trigger all those problems that we have with the environment, you see that it all goes back to a more like systemic approach to consumption, that goes to the way that we produce, that we do things. And it goes back to the people as well, to hearing the stories about the people that are affected by things, or how they do, for example, with the fisheries, how they fish properly and how they're affected by industrial fisheries. So all that has kind of, through the years that I've been working on this, kind of started changing a little bit more my perspective. So I got a little bit more into that. And then quite lately into tourism, although I do have to say that I had a travel agency once, because I'm also a scuba diving instructor. That seems like ages ago that I did this. I used to organize diving trips, so I did kind of do some of those things. But yeah, so in the recent years, I've also worked a little bit, and right now I work as a consultant in sustainability and circular economy, and I focus more on tourism lately because I really see the potential of the tourism industry to drive positive change. That's why I put this title on my presentation. I come from Madrid. I live in Spain, where the tourism is obviously a very, very, very big industry. But I've also always liked to travel. I've traveled also to West Africa. I've traveled around Europe, South America. So I've seen that kind of triggers something inside me of how can we have like a more positive impact with traveling? How can I help with all this? And then lately I moved to Mallorca, where it's like the explosion of tourism and of mass tourism. So it's kind of changed a lot of my perspective. So I really want to contribute to the positive change that can come with the industry. And what I'm going to try to cover very basically with the presentation, and please, I put those things to interact, but if you, at some point, you really want to stop and make a question or something, don't just wait for me to just keep talking and talking and talking. Whenever you want to ask something, just raise your hand. So as Victoria was saying, I'm going to cover more like the broader sustainability and human rights aspects of globally, and how can that be linked directly to the tourism industry through what we call sustainable and responsible tourism, and then a little bit more of those elements that actually make tourism a development driver that can help in countries that are right now developing countries, but also in areas that we can have in other countries that are more rural areas or communities that are in need of that development, but with a sustainability focus. So that leads me to my first question, which you should see with the rabbit, maybe. Is how much do you know about these topics? You should be seeing that, and 1 would be no idea, 5 I'm an expert. So you could start as answering there. I'm going to put a 4 for myself because I think that there's always things to learn. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's anonymous. So yeah, it's a pity that I can't show it here. It's just that I don't want to keep coming in and out. But you probably can. Can you see the results on your phone as people are answering? Okay. So we do have quite a few more towards the not much knowledge. How many people are there in the class? Because 25 have answered. And Nuria, how many are there in the class? To know how many have answered. No, it's just to know because we have like 27 replies. So you go to. Eh? No, no, no. The topics about sustainability, human rights, responsible tourism. The, the code is CTT and then 711, which is today. Okay. Well, let's see if this kind of works, or else I will just. Did you all answer? I got so far like 35 replies. Okay, and now because I activated the next one, then you go to the next question, which is from a 1 to 5, how important do you think that these topics, sustainability, responsible tourism, are for you and your career as a tourism professional? How important do you think they are? I'm putting a 5. Ooh, not bad. I don't know if you're answering that because I'm here or it's really how you feel. Okay. Well, not bad because then it means that you probably will be kind of interested on the things that I have to. Okay. So that was a little bit to set the feeling, a little bit of the room, how you felt about these topics because you never know. So I just wanted now to set a little bit. This first 3 or 4 slides are going to be a little bit of the, not the doom and gloom, but like setting the stage that we have right now. As I said, I've worked a lot on environmental projects and conservation and environmental organizations. So I do work every day with data, figures, reports, and things about how bad we are doing. But that's why I even want to keep more my positive attitude towards things. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the challenges that we have, so to speak, as a society right now in the 21st century. So we have a growing population. Does anybody know the global population right now? Without looking in the computer. Yeah, 8 billion. It's just 8.1 billion. And we're set to, obviously, this is still going to increase about 8.5 in 2030 and over 9 billion by 2050. So obviously the prospects that we have is that we're going to be more and more people in the planet. And obviously it's people that need to have the right development, access to their basic human rights. They all want to consume things and use resources. So we really have to manage all the people that we are and that we're going to be even more in the world. We have predominantly, I also have training in circular economies, a lot of things that I do. So we predominantly have a linear model of the way that we produce things, services, and goods mostly. So we take resources, we make something, we use it many times for not too long, and then we generate a huge amount of waste that then it's not properly managed. And that obviously is going to increase as we are more and more people. So this is something that it's also a big challenge. Currently, less than 9% of the resources that we use actually go back into the system. So there's really is a lot of room for improvement. All this is also generating more inequalities still, like Victoria has said. Even though we're growing, we're becoming more modern, more technological, we still have a lot of big breaches between the global north, the global south, and even within countries. So it's something we still have to work on a lot. And we are a very globalized society, which is not intrinsically something that is wrong, that we are connected globally, but in excess, it has made us, well, it does drive a lot of these things of not using the resources properly and of driving inequality when we manufacture things in other countries because it's cheaper and then we transport them all the way to the other side of the world. But also with quite recently when we had like COVID or with the conflict in Ukraine, we've seen how this also makes us more vulnerable as a society because our supply chains and a lot of our geopolitics depend too much on things that are out of our control and all that, this huge interconnection. And we have, which is for me the biggest challenge that we're facing right now as a global society, which is climate change. You know that we had the Paris Agreement that we're set to limit the rise in global warming to 1.5 degrees from pre-industrial levels by 2100. And right now, with what we're doing up to now, we're set to reach this by the 2030s. So we're really not on track at all. We have to urgently speed up everything that we're doing to tackle climate change. And this is going to affect everybody, and it's affecting every sector. There's already studies about how this is going to affect the tourism industry. For example, here in the Mediterranean region, it warms up 20% faster than other parts of the world. So increased heat waves there's already studies and reports that are saying how, for example, in the case of heat waves, how can that affect the tourism demand in certain regions, for example, in the Mediterranean. People are not going to want to come as much to where I live, for example, to the Balearic Islands. So here, if you're at 40, 45 degrees for many, many days during the summer, they're going to go more to northern areas, which is going to be a milder weather. So it's going to affect, even if it's just from a demand point of level, the way that people are going to travel. Of course, sea level rise or other extreme weather events are going to have impacts on infrastructures, but also just purely on the demand of what we have. So we really are in a point where we have to move, and we can decide with all these things that we have if we still go in the same direction or if we really move to another direction as a global society, but also as a sector. In your case, it's a tourism sector. Do we keep doing things the way that we are doing that, or do we actually acknowledge all these challenges that we have and decide to go on a track that is going to put us in a better direction, more in the path of where we have to go to be able to deal with all these things, no? And we're going to talk about how you can have an impact on all these challenges that I have mentioned already. Because, and I'm sure that here you could think about many more examples, right now tourism is mostly based on quantity over quality. We always want to hear about how many people have come. If there's been more people than last year going to a destination, and you have a lot of people going to the same places, taking the same photos at the same museums or landmarks, or like the popular beach right now on Instagram. And this is really taking over what is really like the experience of traveling. I don't know what it's for you, but for me, it's always been like, seeing other places or seeing other cultures, and then you just find yourself like you're kind of like moving in masses with lots of different people and not really considering or experiencing where you are, because you're just kind of going with the group and with the flow, and mostly sharing your experiences, just like taking those pictures of the specific places, like to tick them off the list, and we don't think about going to other places, different places, and enjoying places in different ways, which is something that we're going to talk about. And all this obviously has some impact on tourism, on the sector, and also on the places where on these destinations where tourism takes place. So I wanted to ask you now also a question. Here you can type like more, not just one word. You can actually put like a text. Let's see if it's working. What do you think are the impacts of tourism? It should be active now. Let's see what you put. It's a pity that I can't see it here. No one is putting anything. Now, what if we all go to the same place at the same time, like to that beach in that cala in Mallorca? What are the impacts? Or if we all go to the same urban centers in the cities, or okay, we already have 3. Here I do have to exit and see this for a minute. Okay. So what are the impacts? Oh, that's a long list. Loss of cultural identity, mass tourism leads to gentrification, pollution, collapse, overcrowding, overbooking, loss of authenticity, drive away wildlife, gentrification. Okay, not bad. Pollution, let's see what the first ones were. Erosion of soil, nature, climate change, soil erosion, massification, over-tourism. Okay, well, I think that, well, the way that I asked the question already led you to think about the negative impacts, but actually impacts can also be positive. It's sometimes we think about the word impact and we immediately think about something negative, but it doesn't necessarily have to be negative. So let's talk a little bit about the impacts of tourism. Some of them you already said them in that brief quiz that I just sent out. We can tell this is not going to add comprehensive list. There's a lot of things that maybe that you could add to this, and it would depend also on where you are, the destination, on where exactly the tourism activity is happening. They can be different, but we could kind of talk about them, about how their economic, social, and environmental impacts. So if we start with the economic ones, the positive ones obviously is that it creates jobs, it creates employment, it kind of speeds the economy where at the destination, and all the other, that we will also see all the other elements of the supply chain. It also increases the revenue and the investment at the destination. Now, if there's a big economic activity like this, then there will be investment, especially public investment on infrastructures, on services. They will be built, and there will be the maintenance of all those, like, I don't know, like roads. As someone was mentioning before, like roads, public services like transportation or healthcare, things that the tourists will want to use. And because of that increase in population, when there's a tourism activity, then they will be developed to attract more people. It also means that there's more of a diversified economy. But on the other side, if there's a strong seasonality, for example, that you can see a lot here in the Mediterranean, but then again, this is different depending on where you're talking about, then the employment is not really, it's temporary. It's not like a long-term kind of employment. People work for like 6 months, 7 months, and then they're out of a job, and then they come back for the next season. So it's a bit difficult like that to also have like a family or a life kind of plan if you know that your job is not going to be sustained. There can be a decrease in the local revenue, and that might be like, why would that be if we're actually bringing more money? Because it depends who is developing the tourism activity. If you think about, for example, the typical resort, all inclusive, and someone will come there, they will stay there, it belongs to a big company, and then the people, the local ones, they don't really see any of that economic activity that comes and goes from the people that are traveling there. So it depends also on the type of businesses that are set up. It will have more or less local revenue. And then also with the infrastructures and the services, they can be either underused because they're magnified, and then they're not really put under, once the tourists leave, then the residential population, the residents, they don't really, they're not really enough to use it properly. So it's kind of a waste of public money in a way, but also under capacity. This happens a lot, for example, when you have to, with waste management or water treatment, that they are planned for the local population of 5,000 to 1,000, and then suddenly during 4 months you have 50,000 people. So that obviously has also impacts on how to manage all those services. From a social perspective, tourism can help with conservation of cultural heritage. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, and cultural values and traditions, and the development of the community if the revenues and the employment stays there. But as many of you have mentioned, it can lead to the loss of the cultural identity. how many of you have been walking around like the typical centers of big cities and everything just looks the same? You have the same shops and there's not even local people living there anymore because everything is meant for tourism. So you lose a lot of that. There's an increase in the price of basic needs like housing, even the cost of basic goods like food. If you live in a big tourist area, well, obviously the prices go up, and that affects like the local residents. Sometimes it can lead to increased insecurity when there's a lot of mass tourism. There's not enough public services to maintain the security, so that also has an impact on the local residents. And of course, like the congestion of spaces and services in peak seasons because of that flow of a lot of people coming over at the same time. But again, as I said, this is not like the full list. You can have, depending on where you're thinking, it can be different. And last, on the environmental side of things, well, it can help because a lot of people travel to see cultural heritage and places, but they also travel to enjoy a beach, a mountain, all these natural assets. So obviously it can lead to the conservation of them because it's what the tourism activity is based on. But from the environmental side, there's obviously an increase in emissions. Like the tourism industry would be responsible globally for around 8 to 10% of global emissions. Increase in resource use, which is a big issue, especially with water, because compared to what a resident can use daily, like a tourist can use like 4 times as much, because not only like what you use like for showers and everything, but also because you have pools, and that adds to your use of water. You have showers in the pools, you have a lot of laundry services, a lot of different things that add to your water footprint. And in places where there's a big water scarcity, and with, again, bringing over climate change, how is this going to affect? Then that's something to consider. Are we taking resources from the local community to put it to a tourism industry? And more pollution and waste, habitat destruction, depending on where things are built, and impacts on biodiversity because of habitat destruction, or because also there's mismanagement of activities related to biodiversity, to wildlife watching, or interaction with animals. So there's a lot of different things. So the thing is to keep more of the positive, to turn this balance and keep more of the positive impacts and do less of the negative ones. And this is really where the industry has to go, because as I said, where we come from this situation of more people with less and less resources that we're using not in a very efficient way, with more inequalities and degradation of ecosystems and biodiversity, we have to move to a place where we are more resilient. We don't depend so much on everything that comes external. We regenerate, we reduce the use of resources, and we redistribute wealth and justice and fairness and human rights. So that was just to set the stage. All good? Did I talk too much? So that was like the negative side of things. I'm not going to talk too much about that. So what does it mean then? Okay, I want to be sustainable in the tourism industry. So this is something, and I saw the other day that Nuria also does this. I like sometimes to Google a term and then see what comes up. And it's actually interesting that if you put it in Spanish, it's quite different. But you still see that if you Google sustainable tourism, you have a lot of greens and planets. The word ecotourism, which we don't have to mistake sustainable tourism with ecotourism. Ecotourism is activities done in nature related to natural assets. Sustainable tourism is the model itself of the industry that we want to do. But there's still like a lot of green nature, landscapes. But sustainability, as Victoria was already talking about, it's more about the 3 aspects that we've already seen in the impact slide. It's not just about the environment, which, as I said, for me is my background. So I did initially also back in the day start thinking about sustainability more with this aspect. But it really is about integrating these different elements of how we live in the planet and how we relate to each other through the economy, how we relate to each other as human beings and within the environment, which is what sustains us, the planet as itself. So then sustainable development, and anything when you talk about sustainability, you really have to be talking about these 3 things. not just about one. Sometimes you will have to prioritize one of the things depending on the issue you're talking about, but you always have to consider the three of them. And that's how you will reach actual sustainability, living in a world that is fair because the economy and the social aspect is balanced, in a world that is livable because the environment is not excessively degraded and it can actually allow us to develop as a society, and that it's viable because we are allowed to have economic activities without damaging too much the environment. So that's how we achieve sustainable development. And it's a big thing. It's not something that you can achieve in 1 or 2 days. I've been working on this for almost 20 years now. Things are moving, things are changing, but it really is something that you have to push as a pathway to where you want to go. It's a short-term, mid-term kind of process. So it's important. As Victoria was saying, like her projects, like 1 year, they don't make sense. When we're talking about sustainability, we have to have that vision, because if we just plan about one single action or one single project that is just going to last for a few 1 or 2 years, or just somebody in our team that is engaged with this, but the rest of the people don't understand what we're doing, then we're not going to get the results that we want. And in this sense, and I don't know if you know about the Sustainable Development Goals. Yes? Well, so anyway, I wanted to play this video for all of you who maybe you don't know all of them, or just as an introduction for those of you who are not aware of the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm glad that a lot of you do, because a lot of the people still don't know about them. A ver si funciona el... Ah, sí, súper.
So, what are these goals? Eliminate poverty in all its forms. No hunger. Everyone should have safe, nutritious, and sufficient food. Everyone has equal access to healthcare, thus ensuring our well-being and a healthy life. Equal access to a quality education. Ensure gender equality where women and girls have the same opportunities as men and boys. By achieving these goals, each member of our society will be equal, safe, and happy. UN global goals also include access to safe drinking water and sanitation, access to clean energy that is safe for people and the environment, sustainable and stable economic growth. Everyone has a decent job, strong infrastructure, and the support of innovations. Lower inequality within and among countries. Cities and settlements be developed without damaging the environment and people. Achieving these goals will result in the well-being of people and our planet. We can further take care of our environment with the following goals: sustainable and safe production and consumption of products. Take urgent measures to reduce climate change and its impact. Ensure the sustainable use and protection of ocean and sea resources. Restore and protect Earth's ecosystems. By achieving these goals, we will form a society where strong institutions ensure peace and justice. It is important for everyone to be involved and to build partnerships for achieving sustainable development goals. You are part of this process. Demand the implementation of these goals. Take the lead and share information with your friends.
So those are the 17 goals. Right? Why did it go to the next one? Check it out. No.
Did you know that the UN Sustainable Did you know that the UN's...
Okay, we do know. Okay, so, well, you did know about them. Do you know when they were agreed? And what's the timeline to achieve them? Yeah, 2030, well done. They were agreed in 2015. We came from before that we came from the Millennium Goals, which were mostly about ending hunger and poverty. And that was something to be achieved by 2010. But then, again, in the United Nations, we came together and they did something that wasn't so much focused on the global south, something that they agreed to as a that would have a global impact, both in the global north and the global south, and be more comprehensive, tackling those three aspects of sustainability. So not just, we still obviously have the part of hunger and poverty, but then including economic aspects of sustainability and the environmental side of things. And there's 94 targets. Each of these goals has a specific target. If you go into the website, you will see, because this is just like the headline, but then it has like some specific targets, each of them that we want to reach, about poverty or clean energy. And all those have to be met by 2030. So we're kind of like halfway over there. And the important thing about this is that this will have like a positive impact. It's not just about minimizing the damage that we do with our economic activities or as a society. It's about actually giving something back that is positive. And this isn't something that is only responsibility of the governments. Of course, the governments, they have their 2030 agenda, and they try to give a boost to all the different goals with different actions, but also in the private sector, as companies, a lot of them are committed to the Sustainable Development Goals, and there's the Global Pact for the SDGs, where companies actually sign up and they do different initiatives and activities together. So it's not something that it just relies on the political level. It's something that we can all do also as an education institution here to teach about these things as a way of promoting the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is an important thing that we have to keep in mind until 2030, that we can all contribute to that. And as I said, like, they actually tackle the three aspects of sustainability, which is something that brings an additional element to what we had before. So through protecting the marine environment and the terrestrial ones, and access to clean water and climate action, we are working on the environmental aspect with poverty, sustainable communities, gender equality, zero hunger, education, and so on to society. Then with innovation, with work and entrepreneurship, with sustainable production and consumption, more on the economy side. And then the number 17 is more on how we can work in alliances together, how we can create also a more collaborative society to work towards the goals. So that's one aspect of the things that we wanted to tackle. But also, well, already there in the Sustainable Development Goals, we see a lot of things that have to do with human rights and a lot of the things that Victoria was talking about. So I also have a short video to show you, but before that, I wanted to ask you because sometimes we think that we know which are the basic human rights, but not everybody, or we don't really know as many as we thought. So which ones do you think are the basic human rights? It's already active if you want to reply. Or you can raise your hand also with the analog way of participating.
Anybody brave enough to just
Go back to the 1990s.
I have no idea. Is it like 30 human rights? Is that the number that we're looking at? Are there like 30?
Yes. There's a lot. Someone is here again. I have to go. Respect, housing, food, water, freedom of expression, right to food, education, food, water, honor, quality, respect, beliefs, and also freedom of movement. See, I think that, well, now I'm going to show a video where you see like where the Declaration of Human Rights was actually signed, and it gives a little bit more detail. Because sometimes I think that there's a bit of confusion with what the basic human rights and what rights do we have sometimes regarding our constitutions in our countries. So we respect. That's a big word that came up. Okay. But some of them are there. ¿Dónde está? So let's go back to this. A ver.
1948 rings a bell? Hmm? Oh, yes, of course. It was in the last century. Grandma and Grandpa's generation. Legend has it that there were still dinosaurs hiding in caves up in the mountains, but that is something we're really not sure of at all. Back then, everyone was suffering from the Second World War and its 70 million dead, the most devastating conflict in human history. So in 1948, to make sure such atrocities would not happen again, the search for shared values began. Why? Have people unite around a strong symbol, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. What is less known is that it was adopted by the UN General Assembly and has become the most translated text on Earth. But what are human rights? The rights you are entitled to simply because you are a human being. In other words, everyone benefits from them from birth, without exception or distinction. The idea behind it is that these rights are like needs. They are absolutely necessary to live well. Without them, it would be the law of the jungle, and you'd risk being beheaded if your government didn't like your Facebook status. In the Declaration's 30 articles, there are the civil and political liberties, such as the right to life, the right to vote, freedom of expression, or the prohibition of slavery and torture. Rights are interdependent, indivisible, and interrelated. This means that if a right is not respected, a series of other rights won't be either. If you are homeless, you're in the streets, so you can't sleep. You get sick, you don't go to school, and won't find a job. Violation of the right to adequate housing triggers the violation of the right to rest, the right to education, the right to work, etc. These are economic, social, and cultural rights. Okay, so a great text we can read upon, but who does what? Well, on paper, the state's mission is to take the necessary measures for the Declaration to be respected. But in reality, there are some very bad students. The Declaration is not a legislative text, it's an ideal. Its name says it all, it is a declaration. Therefore, it is not valid in a court of law. But most states have integrated human rights in their constitution, and therefore, they must guarantee them. You can defend human rights only if you know them. Everybody's role is to ensure they are respected. Collective conscience means that each and every person is responsible for everybody else's well-being. Therefore, we can all get involved, protest against injustices, and make the universal rights ideals succeed.
Thank you. Okay, yes. So it was a very brief introduction about what are the basic human rights. A lot of them, as it says in the video, are more related to civil and political rights. Some of you mentioned some of them, like the freedom of expression or housing. There's also the freedom, for example, to marriage, but like to the freedom of choosing who you want to marry, which is really important, especially in certain countries. So it's important that also, just as people living in a society, we know and we are conscious about what are our basic human rights. There's also others that are not here, but the access to clean water and sanitation, or to adequate food, is also are also two of the basic human rights. So knowing that, and not only for ourselves, but also as we work as professionals, then we have to be sure that these things are respected wherever we are carrying out our activity, and how we can then have a positive impact to where this is not happening, how we can help to turn that situation around. So only if we are aware of them is how we can actually work towards them. And there's other rights that then are delivered, for what I mentioned before, like in our constitutions, like the right to a clean and healthy environment, which is something that increasingly happens in more constitutions. And then you have, for example, the rights for the children rights. Sorry, I was getting mumbled. Which is something that we have to consider a lot. Also, they have their own rights. Obviously, all of these ones are included, but also specifically, more importantly, education and shelter, but also the right to be children. So no labor, they have the right to play. So all these things we have to be, it's important that we know about them. And I think that a lot of the times we are not as aware of them as we think we are. And actually, in tourism, now bringing it back to the sector, as I was mentioning, it's important to be aware of these rights, because sometimes we go with our mental framework of where we live and where we come from, and we go with like our bubble of living, for example, here in Spain or in Europe, where most of the human rights are respected, and we think that if we go somewhere, then that's the same situation, because we carry like our own mental mindset with us. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So it's very important that we are also aware that as an industry, we are respecting the human rights, because after all, well, I'll put the video now, tourism depends on the people that are running the industry at the different levels. And there's the risk of violation or violating the human rights in all the different aspects.
Working in tourism
Porque se-
it's a people's business that depends first and foremost on the people who work in the industry and who live in tourism destinations. The business case for respecting human rights in tourism is obvious. Motivated staff and suppliers and respect for the local population are key to high quality and sustainable tourism products. Guest satisfaction is directly correlated with the well-being of the hosts. Exploitative working conditions, discrimination, and competition for scarce local resources such as water or land threaten local people and communities, and the long-term business success of tour operators as well. Every tourism activity has an impact. Companies must take responsibility to strengthen positive impacts and avoid negative ones. You need a strategy to actively respect human rights along the value chain. The UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights serve as a global guideline for this process. Human rights are not an add-on. They are at the core of every corporate strategy and all activities. You may be wondering what you and your company can do. There are some measures that you as a tourism company can implement yourself. For example, engaging in a dialogue with your local suppliers and partners is a first step to assess your risks and act responsibly. Other measures require collaboration within the industry. In a joint effort, tourism companies can increase their influence and establish standards for decent working conditions for hotel staff, tour guides, and drivers in destinations. The Roundtable Human Rights in Tourism will support you. Join our international multi-stakeholder initiative and profit from a trusted platform for exchange and mutual learning to identify positive impact opportunities along the entire value chain. We are developing online tools and guidelines, provide resources and expertise, and coordinate demand-oriented pilot projects. We join forces for human rights in tourism. Become a member, because without human rights, there is no sustainable tourism development.
I'd like to know the way to the end, because I also think that it's important that you know about other initiatives and organizations that are not like directly from the private sector, but like what Ethnic is doing, or this, for example, this roundtable, or other initiatives that are working more generally on the SDGs. So you have a lot of things that you can amplify and look out into as you start working a little bit more in the industry. It's important to know that there's a lot of resources and people that can support you and can give you advice on how to do things. So as the video was saying, tourism depends on the people, and it depends a lot on the local communities. And as Victoria already mentioned, it's important that we know the reality of the local communities and that we speak directly to the actors there, to the stakeholders, to the people that are developing projects, to the people that have their own businesses, so that we know the needs and how we can better impact. Because sometimes we might think that an action can have a positive impact, but if it's not focused or properly oriented to what exactly that place needs, then it's a waste of resources and a waste of a chance to do something that will really be better. So, and it's important to, as I said, like to be able to scan this as tourism professionals. I don't know if you already have an idea of what you want to do. You want to work more in the private sector, travel agency, more at the destination level. But it's important that we take all this into consideration when we develop also like our strategies of corporate responsibility or sustainability strategies, to always consider this and be sure that we are having the highest positive impact that we have, and ensure that, especially on the human rights side of things, that we are not contributing to them being breached. And as I said, depending on the destinations, there's a lot of risk that you might involuntarily be contributing to sexual exploitation, to child labor, to bad working conditions. So always make sure when you're developing whatever project you are going to be developing in the future, like a fantastic one, that you always have this in mind, and especially that you talk to the right people. Well, I'm going to skip this one. Well, was just to mention that the importance of tourism in the SDGs, that it's mentioned specifically in 3 of them, but it can have an impact in any of them depending on how you orient your activity. So I'm going to go straight to this just to give like the specific background. And now we're going to see some real examples, some case studies about how, so you can visualize what sustainable and responsible tourism can be. But just to set the basics, then, with all that we've been talking about, I think we can already kind of imagine what the definition is. Had anybody seen this or read this before? How it's defined by the World Tourism Organization, sustainable tourism. So it's defined as the one, a lot like how sometimes people define sustainability, that it takes full account of its current and future economic impacts and environmental impacts, and addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and host communities. I think it's important to highlight that one, that we don't forget that we're developing an activity that takes place in a place that has its own community and its own system in itself. And what it has to work on, and this is goes back to the pillars of sustainability, it has to make a good use of ecosystems and resources, and contribute to the protection and the conservation of natural heritage and biodiversity. And here also it's a lot about the type of interactions we do with biodiversity, no animal exploitation, all those things, which is also many times overlooked in a lot of destinations. We think that it's really cool to go on an elephant or a camel, and then that has behind it also animal exploitation. So don't forget about that aspect as well. That it ensures viable and long-term economic operations, benefiting all stakeholders, and it's fairly distributed. That's important. Like what I mentioned before, then not all the revenue that something generates goes just to the one big company that has decided to have tourism activity in a place like a resort or something, but it really kind of seeps into the whole community and contributing to poverty alleviation. And an aspect which I think is also super important, and it is very characteristic of the tourism industry, is the cultural aspect. It has a lot of potential to not only like physically conserve like heritage, landmarks, museums, whatever, but also the traditional values, the traditional different. I got stuck. The cultural heritage, the traditional values, and the intercultural understanding and tolerance. So it's not just about the physical culture, but also the intrinsic ones that you have with the way that people live and how they relate. They're religious. Also, it's important because sometimes tourism activity can also be very intrusive in the religious traditions that people have. Access to temples and places, sometimes they're not respected. Let's open this up so tourists can go and see this anytime they want, and then the locals can't have their own religious traditions happening in a normal way because tourism has taken over that. So also let's be conscious about the cultural aspect and being respectful about it. Culture is not like a show. It's something that has to be presented with the respect that it deserves, because that's how we really understand it and how we can contribute to maintain it in the long term. So let's go now to the practical things. That's enough of the other one. One of the good things about tourism is that you learn a lot of geography. So, and please don't Google map it. So where is Uganda? If you see this, wait, I have to activate this one. You should see a map in your, this. You should be seeing this. Can you answer? Without having Googled it if you didn't know where it was.
You're studying geography right now, aren't you?
Okay. Only 4 people have answered. The longer you take, the more suspicious I am that you're looking it up. Okay, well, whoever said 1 is the winner. Okay. Uganda is here. Yes, someone was saying around here like Central Africa. Yes, around the tropical belt of Africa. So well done. This is actually Gambian Senegal. I put it on purpose. What are you talking about? Okay. Yeah.
Number two is Cape Town, or, sorry,
It's
South Africa,
Namibia.
Namibia.
Namibia, yeah. And this one is Zimbabwe, I think.
For Zimbabwe? Or?
Yes, Zimbabwe. Well, it's not very like I put it myself, so it's not like super specific.
Someone is changing.
Okay. Okay, so Uganda. Who knows the movie Gorillas in the Mist? It's from the late 80s, I think. It was very big back then. Okay. Too much, huh? But it's one of those classics that then you keep watching.
Classics, maybe.
Okay. I was a kid back then. Okay, well, it's a very famous movie about Sigourney Weaver. It's a real story about Diane Fossey. It's a good movie if you want to watch it. She was a conservationist. She was, well, that movie is mostly about the conservation of the mountain gorillas in this part of Uganda. It's a good movie. Just watch it. Okay, so a lot of the obviously of the things that attract visitors to go to Uganda, which has the slogan that they are the pearl of Africa, is like in many places of sub-Saharan Africa. It's the nature. It's wildlife watching. It's safaris. In this case, it's also the gorillas, because this species of gorillas, the mountain gorillas, are endangered. They've been killed for many years because, well, there's been a lot of conflicts and wars in this area, so that has obviously affected any conservation efforts, and then through poaching and hunting. So now they're still endangered, but the populations are growing. But it's one of the main highlights of visiting one of these countries. So of course you could go to Uganda and do all the wildlife watching and everything, which is great, and you're contributing to the conservation of the protected areas and all the wildlife that is attached to those places. But you could also, and this I'm talking about, imagine if you're planning a travel to Uganda, no, you could do like just that basic thing, or you could add something else. This is, for example, and again going back to the importance of working with people that are at the local level. They know what you have to do and how to empower the communities there. This is an association that's called the Justice Tourism Foundation, and it also works on developing all these other community activities for tourists to go and engage at a community level while doing traditional, like this is like basket weaving, or they also have tea plantations. They have also art festivals and traditional dance activities. So you could do like the visit Uganda and do the wildlife, which is great, and you would be contributing to that SDG, for example. But if you add as a travel professional, a tourism professional, you offer to have an additional activity like this one that is managed by the community through this association, then you're having so much more impact, and it's just something extra that you can add on to what would be the typical trip that you would do, right? So you would have also an impact on the, sorry, this is in Spanish, I didn't change it, on decent work and economic development, on ending poverty, because we're giving the revenue is staying directly with the community. We're contributing to a more sustainable consumption and production, to more resilient communities, and many, many more things. Not depending on the activity, then you could see like all the other impacts that you have. So sometimes when we think about sustainable tourism, we don't have to like change the whole thing that we're doing. Like this, we have a travel. We have already our offer to a destination. We don't have to like flip it and turn it all around. We can start by doing small add-ons to what we're offering or to our customers. Because you have this huge supply chain. I know probably you've already worked about on this, maybe in some other subjects now that you're starting to work on tourism. But the supply chain for the tourism industry, this is a simplified one. It's huge because it goes from when you're planning and booking the trip to all the way like traveling, finding the accommodation, then what you actually do at the destination, that you move around, you buy things, you do trips and activities, day trips. So And all this involves people, companies, services, goods that you can choose and choose to have a positive impact with. So there's really a lot of intervention points. So ideally, everything would be sustainable and responsible, but of course, that's very difficult. So sometimes it's just about finding the right points of entry where you can have that positive impact around all the supply chain. Of course, it will depend like where you work on, but just to consider that there's, as big as it is, that means also that there's a lot of opportunities to have a positive impact. So more of kind of like a practical exercise. I wanted to ask you now, we already know where Uganda is, so imagine, okay, this is a beach resort. This is a real one in Cancun, in Mexico. I worked there on a project, on a conservation project on the reef and the mangroves, and with local communities there and through fisheries, and I saw firsthand of the huge impact that the tourism industry has had on all this part of the Caribbean, not only on the environmental side of things, but also on the community level, because it has taken away a lot of the ecosystem, especially the mangroves are very important for fisheries. And also they protect the whole coastal area from hurricanes, which is obviously something that is very common, and with climate change will be increasingly more common in this whole area. So by taking away the mangroves, which you can't really see here, do you know what mangroves are? They're like this, it's an ecosystem like a forest kind of that it's on the coast and in tropical areas, and the roots actually grow in the water. So they help to protect all the coastal area, to have all the sand, so it's not removed with all the storms, and to protect, because then the people don't actually live on the mangroves because it's just water and channels. They have their communities at the other side. So when there's a big storm coming, that acts like as a shield. Same with sand dunes and everything. So by also taking away all that natural protection that they have now, when they have hurricanes coming over, there's much more impacts and much more damage, and that also affects the local communities. So how could we make this be? This is the typical beach resort: huge pool, chill out area, probably a pool bar or something, all inclusive, lots of rooms. So someone has already answered: conserve the water better, ensure fair wages, work with local companies, protect the natural species. So a lot of the impacts that this is having is obviously of just occupying all that land, the use of resources. Someone is mentioning the water, and also as we're making this, this one is an all-inclusive kind of one. So obviously, people will dine in the same place that they are staying, so they don't go out, they don't go and see the community, so everything stays with the company that runs the hotel. So it's better if the revenue of something that is impacting the community, when you're taking that land off from there, actually they should get something back, not just the damage that is caused by that. Okay, control water pollution, management, pollution, strict regulations. Okay, so supplying like local supplies, diminishing the environmental impacts, hiring locals. Yeah, it's important that we do give employment to the locals, but good employment. Always make sure that it's a good type of employment. And it's also not just the fact that we're giving employment, it's also that we are giving them like extra training so they can develop as professionals where they're working, so then they have more of a career path. That's also a way of giving more of a quality kind of employment. Okay, so you did say a lot of those things. So this is an example. This is in a totally different area, but this is also a beach resort. This one is in Australia. So it still has a pool. You can't see it because it's smaller than the other ones, obviously, but you still have a pool. You still have a chill out area. And you still have like your own very private accommodation, but you can already tell the difference. In this case, it's integrated within the environment. You haven't like clear cut everything just to build your resort. They have like different huts, which are also at level from the ground. So then that doesn't keep the vegetation from growing underneath. They have solar panels. They manage their They have not too much single-use products, less chemicals for cleaning. The food supply all comes from the local community, and they also have traditional elements in the whole decoration and all the refurbishing that they've done with the rooms, which is also something important because it's like tiny things that help you transmit where you are, right? If you have also elements of the traditional values. So here you can see it's another way of doing a beach resort. It still works. It's still a great place to stay, but it's not as impactful as the other one that I was showing. And many more things that probably has. This one, yeah, I said it's in Australia. Lovely beach. So just to wrap this up, in 2017, that was 6 years ago already, it was the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development. And there they already highlighted many of the things that we have already been talking about how tourism can help impact in these 5 key areas, which is what we've been talking about already as an economic sector. It's important here to highlight that with these two, that international travel is expected to increase, and also that more than 50% of it will happen in developing countries. So it's even more important to consider what is the impact of the industry as it's developing and it's expanding towards other places. So that's something worth considering. And also it creates 1 in every 10 jobs globally. So it's very important job-wise. And I don't know if this is correct or not, Victoria, but it's one of the sectors that mostly more employs women. So it also has this increased potential around gender equality. So it's already been highlighted. You see at an international level, I always like to keep also track of all these international initiatives that kind of put us together on the same path and that highlight the things that we have to be working on. So although that already happened, you can still go and look for all the resources and things that were developed for 2017 and which highlight specifically this, like how important this tourism, which is what I said at the beginning, like I already kind of, before I started digging in the sector, I intuitively already could see the potential that it had for being such an impactful tool for development in developing countries, but as I say, also in other areas that you can have like more rural areas in other countries, also in like the global north. So, which country is this? Yeah? Yay! Good. Yeah, this was this was Uganda. This is Rwanda. Okay, so now from Uganda, we're gonna go a little bit south, and we're gonna go to Rwanda. And here again, as it happened with Uganda, you have the wildlife watching, the gorillas. It's one of the big highlights. They have this natural park that is called the Volcanoes National Park, where you can also do a lot of hiking and trekking. So it's a lot of like tourism in the nature. So again, like the example before, like just by doing this, you're conserving nature, but you could have an extra add-on. And I wanted to share this, also this case study, which I find that it's really interesting. Would you stay in this room? Yeah, right? It looks good. Because sometimes I think that when we think about sustainable and responsible tourism, we think that we're kind of staying in a hut in the middle of the forest or something. And yeah, we can still have like a nice, comfy bed, a luxurious place. And this is in Rwanda, in that area, and I don't know if I can pronounce this, probably Savinino, which is it's a small town right next to this national park that I mentioned. And so what they have done is this lodge belongs to a local association called Sakola. And well, there was, I don't know if also you're aware of this, there was a civil war in Rwanda in the early 90s. It was a conflict that went on for I think 3 or 4 years, and it was mainly between 2 ethnic groups, the Hutus and the Tutsis, and there was a big genocide of the Tutsis. A lot of people were killed during part of that conflict. So it's a country that, like many African countries, has had to overcome the scar of having dealt with a very deep conflict, because I think that having a civil war is something that really hurts you as a society. So they've had to overcome and start getting back on their feet. and but that has left a lot of the people still being victims of what happened. There's a lot of widows that were victims of the genocide, or a lot of vulnerable collectives. So there's a lot of needs within the society in Rwanda. So with this case example, they developed with this association this lodge. They also have activities and tours around the place, but they have this slogan, uplifting lives through lifetime experience. So they offer you a lifetime experience by staying here, and by staying there, you uplift their lives with the positive initiatives that they have. So here you can see this is where they have the lodge. The border with Uganda. This is all the national park where you can go and see the gorillas. So with all the money that they raise through that lodge and the other tourism activities that they developed, they've managed to build a lot of schools. All these books that you see are schools that they built. So human rights, education, SDG. They develop also agricultural activities, which also allow them to grow not only their own food, but their own livestock, so access to food. They have been able to construct piping and water collection points, access to clean water and sanitation, a health center, an IT center. They actually have computers, so that also in the education they can integrate like new technologies, and many, many more things. They have built houses and for the widows of the genocide, and for other people that are very vulnerable in the community after that conflict. And they're all like the houses, they all come with their plumbing and everything, so it's a decent also housing that they've had. So it's a way to see how impactful, how knowing what a community needs and how the money going to those needs can have an even bigger impact. They have this thing that is called Donate a Cow program, where they have a cow donated to a member of the community. So they actually use that cow for livestock and sell the milk or eat or drink the milk. And then when that cow gives birth to another cow, then they give it to somebody else. So it's like a cow moving forward. It's really cool. So you can check this, the website. I really recommend you to check it out, because they have all these other achievements that they've done just by owning the tourism activity in their local community. That's the important thing, that they own it, not only literally, but they actually take the decisions and say how they want to run it. That's the important thing. And so with just that one decision from them to take that ownership, there's many, many more SDGs and human rights that we have already mentioned. But also for you, with just having that decision of, okay, I'm going to take people to Uganda. Why don't I offer them to stay at this lodge? You're contributing to all of that. So that's why it's important to really look at the options that you have. And yeah, it takes a little bit more time sometimes to actually, because not all these things are probably not on the list of the main tour operators or everything, but it's worth taking that extra time so you can offer something that is more interesting. And just very, very briefly, because we're running out of time, just if the motivation of contributing to positive change is not enough, also it makes business sense to do this, because it's always important. When I talk about sustainability, a lot of people always talk about it as an add-on, and they don't see the economic or the business sense about it. But also remember that by doing this, offering this other type of traveling, you're offering like a different type of product, which is more exclusive in a way, more real. It doesn't have to be, again, like an adventurous type of traveling. You can travel around with families, have real cultural experiences, know the communities, go to different types of places. You don't always have to go to Kenya to do safaris. You can go to Malawi, lovely place. They also have a lot of tourism initiatives there, community tourism. Or in Tanzania, you can go there, enjoy the lovely beach, but still kind of contribute by going to this another activity that they do with women and how they manage agriculture there. So we can have real experiences in unique places. This is something that increasingly it's being more in different reports, that there is more interest in sustainable tourism by the people who travel and in your generation. I don't know if you agree with this, but the different polls and things that have been done show that also the newer generations of travelers that they do want to go to places that are not the typical ones, that are off the beaten path, that they want to really have local produce and experience the community. So there is a market there also. And it's people who tend also to stay longer, to spend more. So it also makes like economic sense when you're developing also these type of travels. But the motivation should be the other one. But you can also go to this. And always just don't forget to communicate what you're doing and give visibility to all these actions, to what everybody is doing, to align, because that allows not only to give visibility to your effort, but also to align with all those elements in the supply chain. And that all helps drive change, so that this is not like the minority of the tourism offer that we have, but it's more like the mainstream one. And that's it, because I'm not going to play this video. Sorry that I had to rush it a bit at the end. Oh, no. That's it. Going to skip that one. Because we just have like 4 minutes. Sorry. That's it.
Thank you very much. Time was perfect.